You also don't have to sit in the front if you don't want. You can like hide in the back. How's everyone doing? Pretty good. First week. Oh, okay, some mediums. Mediums. Highlight of the day, right? Okay, medium. All right. What do folks think this means? Yeah. Circle into the understanding. Okay, all right, I like that. Anyone else? Yeah.
Like, and something simple and making it more complicated than it is.
Okay, okay. Yeah. Perspective. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. We're looking at it at only one point of view. From one point of view. Whose point of view? Theirs. Their point of view, yeah.
It's like with the time I do like say space, like say it's harder than it looks. So I need to take more like that basic earlier perspective. So like going to Mars, it takes more than just like I need tools, resources, time out.
Okay, okay. Yeah. Thinking about how to construct it. Yeah. Yeah. Is there a right answer? No, why? Because art is subjective and we assign meaning to it. Okay, good. So yeah, so I interpret that sort of similar to some of the things that were said. I think of it from the perspective that they're both square heads. They perhaps live in a world that has right angles and they don't know how to communicate round things. So they perceive, and you notice even in the bubble that they perceive like square bubble. And so the only way that they can talk about it is through their own interpretation of the world, right? And this is just a gentle reminder that maybe the world is more complex than we see it, and that we have our own nuanced vision of the world. So for example, we don't see even like most of the light that exists. So snakes perceive the world completely differently than we do. Spiders perceive the world through vibration. Dogs perceive the world through smell. So even though we think of them as seeing animals or insects in those cases, that's not their main sense, right? So we have to always take a step back and think about what the tools that we can use in order to understand the world, right? Okay, everyone's asleep? Okay. So I had about 45 people use the welcoming survey. And I asked you what you wanted to know about in class. And this is what you wanted to know about in class. Hold on. Oh, that didn't really come out very good. It's supposed to be a rocket and it's like a word cloud. So some of the biggest words or biggest concepts that I saw, stars, we won't really get that. All right. But, oh God, you really can't see the biggest one. So there's like the word Mars. That is the word life in white. I promise it'll look better on the slides. That work? Not even. That's too dark? Oh, what? Yeah, well, it's supposed to, it came out well on my computer. I don't know why. Yeah, so yeah, it's life. It's like sideways like that. So many folks want to know about life in the universe, for example. Some people want to know about planets. That's their planets right there, but sideways this way. Planetary formation, space, rings. So there's a lot of really good topics in here, and I hope that by the end of the semester, if we haven't gotten to anything that you wanted to see, we have some extra. I basically don't believe that anyone learns anything in the last week of classes. So I always leave those as extra. And so whether that's you want to know whether or not there are aliens, and you want to lecture strictly on whether or not aliens exist in the universe, that could be a whole one. Whether you want to do the history of the space race, that could be a whole lecture. Whether you want to know about radioactivity and like a film like Chernobyl, was that accurate? You could do that too. So I'm amenable to lots of feedback. These are the other results. So the 43 respondents told me why they wanted to take the class. I think most of you are here for the GE credit. Is that accurate? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Raise your hand if you're not here for the GE credit. Oh, wow. Okay, that's cool. So some people want to know a lot more about astronomy. One is considering changing their major. Two said it sounded easy. So I might recommend, if it sounds easy, consider taking, I'm currently teaching the majors version of this class, which would be the 3300 Astro class. They're also in it. If it sounds like a challenge, I applaud you, because that means that you saw a challenge and you wanted to do it. And then this one here, you're my best friend. That's great. If you have been recommended by friends or you went on to rate my professor, you'll note that it says on almost all the feedback, be prepared to read. So if you hate reading, I got really bad news for you. Okay? I promise you, it's not going to suck. The semester is about learning fun things. Here's what you felt about being comfortable with algebra. So that's a pretty good distribution. I mean, it's somewhere between 3 and 4. Physics, very rare, right? You're like, I didn't come for physics, I came for astronomy. And so we're going to really try to use some of the mathematical concepts, some of the physical concepts. I'll introduce them and we'll immediately apply them. And so I've taught this class before a number of times. Sometimes we have a whole lecture on a bunch of concepts and everyone falls asleep. I'm going to try and like intersperse them. So if you looked in the Canvas and you saw the old slides and you went through and you started looking at all the slides, it'll be different. I don't think anyone did that, but if you did, okay, it's going to be slightly different. Here's what I am required to teach you. Okay, you are here for the B1 GE. So I have to provide instruction in the fundamental rules governing matter in the universe. We'll do that. We're going to talk about the methodology by which these rules are studied. So the scientific method, how we use it in practice. And that's the reason why I'm kind of like starting the semester with clamping down on this idea about how we know things, right? We have to be able to agree upon what is knowable and what's not knowable. And then the consequences of scientific and technological development in the physical sciences, in particular, astronomy and planetary science. Okay. This is the course catalog description. So I'll tell you about planetary systems, extrasolar systems, and the possibilities of life. That's my only requirements. So I can do whatever I want. So the nice thing is that means I can construct the class in a way that reflects what I think are the best learning outcomes based on educational research, based on feedback from times that I've taught this before, and based on your feedback to me, right? So if you're saying, hey, this isn't working for me, and I hear that echoed from lots of people, we can change it. Does that make sense? When I taught this class a couple years ago, we used Mastering Astronomy. I think that was a disaster. Okay, so it's gone. Cool, right? Okay, we're gonna try clickers. I don't want you to pay for the clickers. So you shouldn't have any extra out-of-pocket costs. If you really want to know how well your clicker score is going, you're welcome to pay, I think, some amount of money. Yeah. You didn't receive a clicker? Okay, when if you come up here and find your name, you can sign one out. Cool. This will be included in your participation component of your grade. Okay? Questions so far?
I should have already signed yesterday.
Okay, awesome. Questions? Yeah.
If I don't have it, it's somewhere in my car. Can I go grab it real quick?
Or you can just tell me that you
Do I need this class or?
Yeah, we'll use it, but like if you miss one day out of 30, like I see you, you're here.
Yeah.
Once I know your name with the name tag, I'll be okay. Is that fair? Okay. So for math, I'm gonna give you tools. And there will be a math question on the homework. I know you're already upset about that, but let me introduce you to some ways that even though we're in a quantitative class, we can use skills in order to understand some of the more potentially complicated aspects. But we can use some tools and maybe we use them even outside of this classroom. So you might never go on to do astronomy ever again, right? You might be going into nursing. You might be going into psychology. And you don't need to do algebra, probably. But you might need to know how to do conversions. And so, for example, I like to use this one. It's called Wolfram Alpha. And it's really great because you can put conversions in here, like something like 25 inches in a month. And you can put it in plain English. You can say, turn that into feet per minute. And it just does it. And then it has additional information here. Here's the request I wanted. But it gives you some other examples. And then it gives you comparisons. Right? So I don't know necessarily what the heck that was. I screenshot this some number of years ago. And it compares it to the growth rate of the fastest growing tree. About 75% of the growth rate of the fastest growing tree. Right? And we can use this for other examples. In fact, you may use it on the homework. Okay. That makes sense? So I'm going to go ahead and jump into, wait, no, I have one more question. Does everyone have their clickers? Or like most people have their clickers? They figured out how to use them? Hold on, let's try one more thing really quickly. Okay. I'm going to open this poll really quickly. Oh God, what is this? All right. Now, for this particular poll, I want you to be honest. Okay? It can be in high school, it can be in college. Okay? Like a test. We have 20 responses. Yeah, they're right here. So I can see them. Right, I can see how many people have buzzed in. And I can see what the answers are. I can't see who you are. Okay. I'd have to download the data. Okay, we're up to, and let me do this properly. So the way that I'm supposed to say this is, have you ever cheated on a test? The answer is 1 for yes, 2 for no. And this would include like, using Chegg, or copying, pasting something from Google. Maybe you have a writing assignment that's not really your writing, right? So any version of the academic design. Okay, about 64 of the 77 people enrolled. Does anyone else want to buzz in? Okay. You curious what the answer was? Yeah. Oh, it doesn't show me. Okay, it's about hold on a second. It's about 50 people yes, or 76%. Right? So I'm not actually going to use this to be actionable, but instead I want to talk about the nature of assessment, right? We probably go through a lot of high school, maybe even before then, and you're taking standardized tests. and maybe your ability or the school's ability to receive funding is preconditioned on how successful you are in taking those tests. Right? Something called No Child Left Behind. So if your school did poorly, they would give you less money. That seems reasonable, right? Yeah, that's not at all addressing the roots of economic disparity in educational outcomes. Okay, whatever. So people have been teaching to the test for a long time. And that in some cases is at the expense of your learning. So you are now paying for your education in one form or another, and your time is valuable, just like my time is valuable. You have chosen to take this class because you hopefully intend to learn something. And you do yourself a disservice, obviously, when you don't learn it, but sometimes life gets in the way. We have people, for example, who may give birth during the semester. We have people who are active service members who may be deployed. We have people who get sick and can't come into class. Let's say that happens on the day you have a test. Should your grade suddenly be a lot less because of that? I don't think so, at least not personally. So I'm going to talk you through how we're going to, well, let me stop doing this really quickly. We're going to open up Canvas. Is everyone able? Oh, there it is. Has everyone been able to look at Canvas? Some people did C and E. That's fun. I don't know what that means. So if you've been able to get into Canvas, go away. There we go. Okay. Then you've seen this content. Okay. And so let me just walk you through it really quickly. So if you did want to fill the survey out and ask me questions or tell me what you want to know about, that's still open. The content schedule we're going to look at in a few seconds. I encourage you to join Slack. So this is the easiest way to like message me. So if you send me an email, sometimes that gets buried unless it's like a long email that I need to respond to. If it's a quick thing, I'll try to do it on Slack as quickly as possible because it's just on my phone. And I talk to my students in other classes that way as well. We're going to talk really briefly about the ungrading policy. That's the policy by which we'll be grading the entire class. And then you have stuff here like TikToks that I thought were funny, books, films. I don't know. I made it at some point, so I'm going to keep adding it. And then more importantly, we have this is the anonymous feedback form. If you click that, you will find that it will give, it doesn't take any personally identifying information. And the reason that I put this up is because if something is not working for you in the class, you can say that to me indirectly. Right? I'll get this feedback, no one else sees it but me. If you feel uncomfortable in the class for any reason, you can report it without having to go through the official channels. You know, you can bring it up to me. If you want to attach your name, you're more than welcome to, if we want to discuss it afterwards. Just a way to make sure that everything in class stays good, right? Okay. Let's see, homework 1 is there. Is that scaring anyone yet? No. Michelle? All right, let's talk first about the syllabus, which you've all read. Some of you have read, okay. That's my name. This is weird. That didn't end right. So this is where we are. This is my office. It's in the physical sciences building. You go across the courtyard, sort of catty corner on the very end, first floor. It's the coldest office in the hallway. So if you're walking by my door and you see like really cold air, feel really cold air, that's me. Because I'm a really warm person. I have some student help sessions. They are here, and we're going to add Garrett and Zori's student help sessions when they get finalized. So if you don't want to come to me with your questions, but you want to talk to them or vice versa, we're available to help you on the homework, to help you understand any concepts in class that you feel like you didn't totally get. Okay. I'm going to skip down here. Oh, God, that looks horrible. This is what we'll cover. We talked about that briefly. I encourage you to read the sections before class, and we'll talk about that in the content calendar. I'll try and keep it up to date as to where we're going. And then in class, we will get things like lecture tutorials, which I won't introduce until Tuesday. So we don't have too many things being introduced all at once. Today, we're introducing clickers and homework. Tuesday, we'll talk about lecture tutorials. You found Canvas. I also encourage you, if you want to get a little planetarium in your own computer, it's called Stellarium. It's free. and like look at what the night sky will look like. There's Slack. There was a link to it over here, but if you want to, you can also just go here. Oh, that's horrifying. Hold on. Here is the CSUSB Slack. Here's the physics class Slack. So I see a lot of folks are joining here, but I will need you to go into this channel on your own. It's open, and add yourself, because I'm not going to add 80 names by hand. I just don't have the effort for that. But you can also Slack me from here directly. You don't have to join the channel. But if people have homework questions or they want to ask the class as a group, you can do that there. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about the activities and assignments. You'll get in-class participation through the clickers by me asking you questions and you responding. We'll do lecture tutorials. You'll work in groups, usually between 3 and 4 people working together, and then you'll turn that in with all of your names on it. You'll receive weekly homework, 5 questions, and these will mostly be short form answers. So we'll show you the homework one today. We'll talk through it a little bit. There will be no exams of any kind. Good or bad? Bad?
I'd rather spend 2 hours on a final exam than 2 weeks on a final lesson.
Oh, there will be no essays.
Oh.
Oh, come on now. Come on now. Okay, so let's do that again. Good or bad, no exams. Okay, no one left right away. Okay, that's good. Because we're going to talk about how we're going to assess the class as a whole. I think that if you do the work, you should get the credit. I think that if you apply yourself, right, and you demonstrate that you learned throughout the course of the semester, you should get a grade. So one thing, oh, is this too small to see here? Let's do a, yeah, that's horrifying. There, sweet spot. Okay. So at regular intervals, you'll be asked to assess your performance in the class with respect to the things that we talk about here, right? I'll ask you to talk about your educational goals, what you wanted to get out of the class, and whether you're doing it. I'll ask you to assess how well you think you're doing in the class, and then I'll give you feedback. You'll give yourself a grade that I'll either agree with or disagree with. And I'll give you reasons why I think that I disagree with it, or reasons why I think I agree with it, and ways that you can either improve your grade, or for any reason you want to get a C, which I didn't see anywhere, but if you wanted to, I can tell you how to do poorly. Okay? Okay. Is this crazy so far? No. Okay. There's observatory open houses. I met a few of you last night there. Pretty good night, in my opinion. You know, we had a lot of haze. So the AQI right now is like 170. It's not great for breathing. It's even worse for telescopes. But as the semester goes on, it starts to rain, hopefully, to clear out some of the smog from the air, and you get even better nights at the observatory. This is not a requirement, but I highly encourage folks to go. Because like, what's planetary astronomy without looking at the stars, right?
Yeah, where can we find the dates and times?
There is a website, which I forgot that I have to update. There's a Facebook that we posted them on. There is an Instagram. So the name of the observatory is the Murillo Family Observatory. Did I add it here? Yeah, Murillo Family Observatory. And we also will be posting physical copies of that, but I can also add the dates, for example, on the modules here in the information. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about the ungrading policy. So the ungrading policy, and you're welcome to click that to talk about why I think this pedagogy is important. This is not just a random idea that I had one day. So professors who care about education research in the physical sciences have identified issues with how we do assessment. And this is a potential solution. I have never tried it with 80 people. So we are going to run an experiment. If it goes horrifyingly, that's okay. We can go back to writing, in a traditional form with numbers on it. If everyone hates it, okay. If only some of you hate it, I'm still going to experiment. Okay, is that fair? But I reserve the right at any time. For example, if no homework gets turned in next week, we have to have a conversation about bringing the exams back. It could be like the penalty, right? I don't want to do that. I would love for your grade to be based on work that you do continuously throughout the semester. But if like no one shows up on Tuesday, then I'm gonna feel like pretty stupid for having them, right? Okay. The reason why I want you to think about this ungrading policy as an assessment of your understanding is that we're gonna take away competition. We're gonna take away any reason for you to not want to collaborate with others. We're gonna take away any motivation, right? So for example, if you think, well, there's 80 people in the class, you can't possibly give out 80 A's, right? Can't. Nothing's stopping me from doing it except for you. Okay, so if you put in the work, I want to reward that with the correct grade. That seem reasonable? Okay. I'm going to require a couple things. Metacognition means thinking about what you know. So in the homework, I will ask you to assess how well you think you answered a question. I ask you a question, and then you can say how confident you felt in it. That tells me, that gives me feedback in the class as a whole as to what they may or may not be getting. Not only did you answer it correctly, did you feel confident in answering it correctly? Or worse, did you feel confident in answering it, but you answered it incorrectly, right? These are two forms of feedback that I can use to try to address gaps in how my teaching and your understanding are going, right? Okay, second one is accountability. Oof, this one's tricky. Because you might say to yourself, well, if there's no due dates, and I'm not going to get penalized, I'll just wait like 15 weeks and I'll do it all in the last week. Let me tell you, that is not going to work. Okay? You will probably end up, maybe you'll do half of the homework in that type, and then you can kind of do the math. You do half the homework and you go to none of the classes. It's not really a passing grade. Does that make sense? Okay. Finally, I'm going to give you meaningful feedback. So instead of just a check or an X, I'm going to underline things that I like or don't like and tell you why. And I'm not going to assign a letter to the top. I'm not going to assign a number to the top. And the reason for that is sometimes you get homework back and you see an A on it. Like, whoa, great. Never look at it again. Sometimes you get a homework back and it has a 50 on it. Like, well, that sucks. Never looking at that. Right? Instead, I want to give you your homework back in whatever state that it was in, places that I think it could get better. And I want you to then look through it, fix it, and give it back to me. So you can give it back to me any number of times. Because at the end of the semester, I want to see a stack of your work that demonstrates your understanding to its fullest extent. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So are we like resubmitting it to like a better grade?
Yeah.
You just do this all again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that crazy?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so this is a very weird way to think about it, right? Why the hell would you do this? Okay, so we actually, as an educational institution, we don't always prepare ourselves for the real world, the workplace. So let's say I work in an office and I turn in subpar work at the end of the week. What happens? They just say, oh, this person is shitty, and let's take their total pay and decrease it by 15%. No. They give it back to you and say you didn't finish the work, do this, this, and this. And then you go and you do that and the work gets done. Right? Okay. In a real world, when you're working, you either show up and you get the credit for it or you don't. Right? So that's the version of accountability that I want to be aware of here. Everyone looks very uneasy. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns? If you can't come to class for any reason, sorry, go ahead.
As far as when we present our assignments, what we have like some sort of error. Did you say you're not going to give us any like actual score?
Mhm.
How's that score on average?
Yeah, it won't. So this is the scary part. And I think a lot of people are gonna say right away, well, how will I know how I'm doing in class? Okay, so if you don't turn in homework, you're doing poorly. If you turn in homework and there's lots of mistakes, you're doing poorly. If you turn in homework and the feedback is, this is great, I think you're really understanding it, you're doing well. If you're coming to class consistently, if you're participating in class, you're using the clicker, you're participating, when we do think, pair, share, you're turning in your lecture tutorials, you're doing well. Is that fair? No? Okay, yeah. All right, heart attack, yeah. Yeah, they should be, yeah. I mean, each one has a number. Yeah, so if you turn it around, there's like a little number, I think that has an ID. So like, don't like, go see the other one. Yeah,
But how do you know we have the right one to begin with?
what's that?
We were just handed these. I could be having one that's assigned to someone else, and the thing that says that this is mine.
Right, but you're gonna turn it back in, right?
So they just get all piled up and then we turn it back in.
No, so at the very end, for example, so you have your name and your student ID and you sign it, and then when you hand it back in, you're gonna write that number. And it's gonna be in a, so basically what's gonna happen is I can download the data and it's in a big old spreadsheet with the ID. And I'm gonna post those IDs so only you can see your progress so far. So you'll be able to see, for example, that you didn't attend class on this day, right? I won't be able to see who did or did not attend class, but it doesn't matter until the end of the semester. You're gonna make an argument that says, hey, I've been showing up, I've been clicking in, and I'm gonna trust you because you're all adults, right? Is that fair? Okay.
I was not understanding.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. So, and everything is, I mean, it's fairly straightforward, right? So this thing just picks it up. We click in, we'll have at least one clicker question, if not more, per class. That'll roughly do your attendance. That'll get to know you, hopefully. Right now, I can see a lot of your faces, and I'll try to assign names to that. We'll see. Fair? Not fair? Okay. And then in about 4 weeks, we'll do our first check-in. And we'll talk about how the check-in works, what the method is. It's impossible for me to do 80 face-to-face interviews. So I don't think we'll do that. But we'll talk about the details of that later on, about 4 or 5 weeks from now. And that'll be our first check-in. We'll have 3 check-ins. Cool. All right. The late assignments policy, everything should be turned in before, or what, sorry, exactly when it's due. So homeworks will become available on Thursday, and then they will be due the next Thursday. So ideally by the end of class, but preferably at the beginning of class. And that way you're not like sitting there doing the homework while we're talking, right? You turn it in, say a Thursday from now, and at the beginning of class on the next Tuesday, I'll kind of go over briefly what I wanted, and then you'll get detailed feedback when my grader gets due. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, great question. And I had someone email me about this. So you can, if you want, print it out. But you'll notice that I didn't like create enough space for you to respond in there. So if you want, you can just write it on paper. If you want to type it up and print it, that's okay too. I would like physical copies because that's much easier for me to mark. But if everyone's super used to Gradescope, we can do that too. And again, that's sort of just a feedback here, right? Gradescope is a little harder because then you have to get the feedback and then you have to resubmit it, but that's okay. Not the worst thing in the world. Questions about the late policy for homework? Okay, if you can't attend class, I also would like for you to tell me and to tell me why. You don't have to lie to me. I'm not your dad, right? You can just be like, hey, I can't make it today. I would really prefer that you didn't come in if you're sick. I care about the well-being of everyone in this classroom. No class is worth everyone getting sick. We're on Zoom right now. It'll be recorded. I noticed not a single person subscribed, but that's okay. So if we go over here, you'll see the link, and hopefully that is evident. So that's me. That's how you know you're not in the wrong place. Look at that. Yeah, 0 views. Okay, so that was Tuesday's class. And you'll notice, some of these are bangers, right? Like residue theory, 42. Wow, that's crazy. And these are all lectures from other classes. So I would strongly suggest that you don't go watch them because you will feel very confused, and that's not the point of these. But if you go to playlists, you'll see I've taught this class twice at the 1000 level with recordings. So if you really want to, you can go and watch the earlier one. I don't recommend it. I don't like watching myself because I don't like hearing my own voice. It's just like weird. But here's the new one. That's F24. And I'll try and post them 1 to 2 days after we do that. Okay. So you can always join on Zoom. If something is precluding you from coming in, just let me know ahead of time. Right. And that way I can be like, oh, this person didn't dial in or they didn't click in, but at least they were present. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That is a level of preparation that I am not able to do. I make the slides up to like 5 minutes before I walk in. Well, because you never know what you like, you get feedback, you think about cool things. Here, hold on. So here's the content, right? Oh, that's the wrong one. Yikers. Hold on. Here's the content. All right. So that's like my game plan. That's what I want to do. It's not always what I get to do. So sometimes I yap for too long and then, okay, we have to like cut slides. And sometimes you guys already get the material really quickly and we blow through the slides really fast. And I have, of course, the next set of slides ready, but now I have to sort of merge them and redo them. Every group of people learns differently, right? So for example, here we're going to talk about the nature of science. And we've already talked a little bit about astrology, but we're going to jump into the human adventure of astronomy. And we're gonna skip the patterns of the night sky until Tuesday for reasons that will become obvious when we start to actually get into the content for today. So even though it says that, I decided to change it an hour ago, right? So I'll try my best so you can kind of see where we're heading and what parts to read. When we're talking, of course, about the solar system, great, you just read the solar system part. When we're talking about moons of giant planets, you just read the moons of giant planet part. But at the very beginning, it's a little, we're just trying stuff out. Of course, these discussions might take longer because they have nothing to do with the material of the class, but instead it's the bureaucracy of the class, right? That good answer? Okay answer? Okay. What else was I supposed to do? Okay. 35 minutes and we haven't talked about, let's see. Here's the homework. It exists. If you want it to be a printable version, I can make a PDF. Someone mentioned that so I like to like embed them into a page so that if I make any change online, it updates, right? So for example, if I get feedback that say this question isn't worded properly or like there's a mistake, then I can just change it, right? Yeah.
So I think you mentioned it earlier, but say like, let's do with dexterity, right? I want to do it on a piece of paper, you wrote it out and make it class.
Okay, so it'll be 5 questions. And this is roughly the style of question. I'll ask you one, a question usually about like definitions, things that I care about, like what does this thing mean? Maybe demonstrate your understanding of it. And here's this funny thing, this confidence. How well do you think you got it? This would be like standard confidence. This would be like super confident. This is like not confident at all. Feedback, right? Second one is like provide examples of something. Okay. This is going to ask you to like think about these things. Sometimes we'll have these, some people like these, some people hate them. Sometimes we'll have these like a friend tells you, or you're overhearing a conversation. How do you jump in and like give them evidence or supporting evidence, find out what's wrong with their argument versus what's right, right? And then you have this one. Have you ever heard of this guy? ChatGPT? Anyone ever use ChatGPT? Really, that's it? Okay. We're going to use ChatGPT in this class. You learn. Okay, so we're going to find some issues that it has. We're going to understand how to use it as a tool. to enhance our learning outcomes. And I'm going to demonstrate that in a little bit. And then, oh no, there's a math one. Okay, so we'll do a little bit of math. We'll get some feedback onto how scary this is. Try and use it sparingly. But this is a great opportunity to challenge you to do some utilization of quantitative techniques so that you can walk away and be like, okay, well, at least I know how to do this, right? And if you really, really hate it, no calculus. Okay. Questions before we go on?
So when you said we can like, honestly, get a substitute of paper and answer the questions on there.
Mhm.
Turn that in.
Yeah. And of course, the things you should have on it is the word homework number, 1, your name, student ID number, and for each question, I would like you to answer your confidence, right? 2, 1.5, 1, 7.5, etc. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah,
So how we ask and get that feedback or
hopefully in a week. We'll see. I just told you it might be crazy. We're gonna find out. You know, if I see something like, I'm gonna get certain types of feedback right away. Because, for example, if we ask a question about definition, right? And I say, what does the ecliptic mean? And that's empty on everyone's, that's feedback, right? If I see people write it, right? Okay, that's a check, right? I can understand, you know, how to look things up, you know, how to use them, right? There may be more open-ended questions. So for example, this will be a more open-ended question. But if I see people have attempted it, I'm like, yeah, this is great. Right? I want to see effort. I want to see that you're engaging with the material. That's much more important to me than the so-called right answer in every respect. Does that make sense? Did you have a question? No, yeah, so sorry. So this is again a holdover. I was trying to pair them. So of course there are some folks who are taking the lab. It's not a requirement, but it is a requirement if you need it to be. Does that make sense? So some people need the lab credit, and so they're taking the lab. That's a different instructor. It's technically part of the class. They have to be taken at the same time, but I have no control over what that person puts into the syllabus, what the order they do them. We try to coordinate, but they might do different things at different times, right? For example, so far, there's nothing you can do a lab on, right? So they'll be doing, I think, scales or something like that. Yeah. Okay, questions? You'll also notice the word exams. That's just a holdover. I know, there's nothing in there, there's no due dates. And at some point, I'm going to put in moon phases. And this is mostly used for me to identify to you, like, okay, if you go up to the observatory, we're probably going to look at the moon. If it's like really bright and beautiful, versus if it's really dark, like it was last night, we're going to see galaxies, we're going to see nebula, stuff like that. Yeah.
The homework based on the readings or the past?
Both ends. All right. Good? Yeah. Yeah, it was. Yeah, of course. Yeah, but see, the thing is that you have to be able to identify these things together, right? So, and if you want to, in particular, it's usually easier to think about the mathematical components in a smaller setting, right? So we'll work on some of them in terms of the lecture tutorials. We'll think of them in the help sessions with either of the LAs. And also, if you want to just come to office hours and be like, what the hell does this mean, right? We can have a really quick conversation about it. Okay. Okay. There's a bunch of questions that you guys asked. I love it. I don't know if we're gonna have tons of time today. Do we want to do some questions now? Do you want to hear them later? I broke them up. I reorganized them. Just want to jump in a what? Now? Okay, all right. We're gonna do a few of them. We're gonna do a few of them just to like break up the monotony of me talking about the class bureaucracy for a long time. What's my favorite character from whatever show, movie, the series that I like? I guess I should have thought of them beforehand. Okay, wait. Let's do the other ones that are easier first. Okay, where am I from? LA. Has this always been my passion? No. I actually thought that I would go to undergrad and be a politician. And it turns out that I suck at writing, especially convincing writing. I can convince you of science, but I can't convince you that my opinion is good. Different people have different skills. So I took a class in intro astronomy. It was a class about the history of the space race. I was like, damn, that's cool. And I had never taken pre-calculus before. And so then I spent an extra year to pre-calculus and I never looked at it.
And we were told we read for all.
No. Ew. I mean, it's probably great. Like people need to do that, but not me. I could not. I do not have that type of ability. Okay. It's my favorite theory or topic. I really like fluid dynamics. It's something that I use in class. It's a special topics class that I teach for upper division undergraduates here. Meaning of the universe, very tricky. The meaning of the universe is whatever you decide personally it is. It's an extremely personal feeling. Significance of our significance of our lives in relation to time and space. Again, that's a deeply personal feeling, right? You can grow up in a culture that has an expectation of these things for you. You can imagine that it's all meaningless. That's a form of nihilism. You can have your beliefs be agreed upon by lots of people, but whatever you choose is right because it's your life. Okay. Do you have any suspected alien sighting stories? No, and neither do you. And we'll talk about that when we go to aliens. And it's really important to understand that the history of aliens in the United States is deeply imbued with well, a lot of things. But if we think about the history of colonialism in all of the world, just the very quick synopsis is that no one ever goes to a new place, says hi, and leaves. Because if it took a long time to get there, you're gonna extract resources and kill everyone. Okay. Have you read your childhood book as an adult? No, this is a great question, and it makes me want to do it. Do you have a connection towards a culture? If so, which culture? This kind of goes into my teaching component. My family is very disparate. My mother's mother, my mother's father, my father's father, my father's mother are all from very different walks of life. We'll just do one of them now. In 1942, there was some bad stuff happening in Germany. My family were doctors in Berlin. They knocked on my grandmother's, my mom's dad's mom's door. They said, no, you should come with us. We have this really cool train that we want you to go on. She was like, oh, but I'm really pregnant. Can you come back in a little bit? They're like, oh yeah, no big deal. We'll come back in a little bit. They got out. Okay, they left. And the United States was like, no, we don't want you. No, thank you. And so Colombia was like, yeah, obviously, you're doctors. Let's go. So they escaped to the Colombian embassy. And then they went to Colombia. So that's the only place that would accept them with nothing. They gave us everything that they had. Right? But in our family, we say that the only thing they can't take from you is your education. Right? Education is a form of social mobility. It's the ability in a just society to move from the bottom to a place that you can support your family. Right? So there's some questions later on about why I teach, and that's part of the explanation, right? You get raised in different ways, different parts of different cultures. So there's lots of different connections, and we can dig into those as we go through the history of astronomy as well. What made me fall in love with outside of Earth's Earth? It's just crazy. It's just so cool. Like, I don't know, there's something mind-boggling about it, and that's really attractive to me that I'm like sitting like, what the fuck? We go to other planets? Like, that's crazy. I mean, even if you just imagine like hiking and stuff, like ancient people walked around the earth for 60,000 years and didn't have language in the modern sense, right? They had a different sense of language. They never developed writing until about 6,000 years ago that we know about. So you had human beings just like chilling on earth, doing whatever. And then eventually we're like, man, let's go up. Which is a pretty audacious thing to even think that you could do, right? The idea of flying is crazy. That's for birds, right? We're like, nope, we're gonna do that. You see like fishes, we're gonna do that, right? And we're very audacious creatures. And to go into space is the dumbest thing you could imagine. Do I want to do it? Yeah, of course I do. You know, come on, who doesn't? Okay. What is my doctorate in? It's in astrophysics and planetary science. Favorite color is red, but I mostly wear blue. Make it make sense. Cats and dogs. I have 2 dogs. They are here. They're dorks. I can show pictures, but they can't come in because they're very loud and they don't like astronomy. What? They're both mutts. So when I was a grad student, we in Colorado, like as soon as you arrive, they assign you a dog. But I wanted dogs and I got one, and I was like, he should probably have a friend. So I got another one. That was a bad idea. And so yeah, so I have 2 dogs, but I had cats growing up. I had like 30 cats because if you have cats in LA, they get a or whatever. It sucks. I know. Someone once said it sounds like you were giving food to the coyotes, and I was like, that's a very rude thing to say, but I didn't know not to do outdoor cats. So as a kid, what do you want? Okay, is that enough questions, or do you want to do the rest of them? Okay, we'll do a little bit each time. I broke them up. Okay, let's see. Now let's do ChatGPT. Has anyone ever used this before? Okay. So what is ChatGPT? You've heard a lot of words about things like AI, artificial intelligence. Is that this? No, it is not this. It is towards this. We're heading in the right direction. But I think, and I'm not a computer science major, so the opinion is exactly what you're paying for it. I think that it's going to miss some important components, and we'll talk about why that is in a little while. So you can run tests on every iteration of a large language model that comes out to see how well it's doing. So for a while, this was the funny test to do, was to ask it which number was bigger, 9.11 or 9.09. Because it would look at the numbers and it would say, well, the 11 is bigger than the 9. And so the one on the left is bigger than the one on the right, right? And that's not necessarily always true, right? So 11 is bigger than 9. I would say that 9.11 is bigger than 9.9, right? Now it's good at it. That's fine. When it first came out, I asked it to list the densities of the 4 gas giants, and it could do that. We'd say what the 4 gas giants were, their names, and the densities. Okay, this doesn't have to mean anything to you yet, but it will later. And then I would ask it to rank them so that it knew what it was doing inside of the response, right? And it wasn't able to rank them. And now it can. That's good. That's progress, right? Okay. You can see that you can use it to ask and answer very interesting questions. So I can say something in the standard model of planetary surface morphology and formation. Of course, I'm writing for myself, so you don't have to make it as complicated. You can name the 4 major surface modification processes. And it does it because it's read lots of books. Okay? So you go through and you can see the answer. And you can ask it to suppose what might happen if things were different. If it was like this or if it was like that. Okay? And you say, oh, it's giving me an answer. Okay? Now, the important thing is do you know whether this answer is right? Because it's very easy to just copy that output and paste it, right? You can even adjust in here. So for example, I could ask it a complicated question about, here's a complicated question about magnets, essentially. I'm not going to go into what this is. But I asked it this question. I said, can you explain this law and how it's used in electromagnetism? And it did a great job, right? It goes through and explains it as though it's reading a textbook. And the best part is you can then ask it to modify its output as though you're having a conversation over coffee, right? You can ask it to scale things down. So for example, break it down in a way that's easier to grasp, like we're just chatting over coffee. And it'll do that. It'll give you the same output, but it'll break it down into easier to understand words. So in a lot of ways, ChatGPT can be like your friend who can know a lot of things and you can ask very specific questions. That's helpful. But just like your friend, how do you know that they're right? So let's try something that's easy. Okay, how many R's are there in the word strawberry? Fingers. 3. Does everyone know that? Or do you have to write it down? Okay, I mean, I'm bad at spelling, like one of the worst at spelling. So let's ask. How many R's, wait, hold on. How many R's are there in the word berry? There's 1 R in the word berry. Okay, great. And so then I asked it, well, how many R's are there in the word raspberry? And I said 2. Okay. So the important thing, and this is something that you're going to find as you go out into the world, is that this is technology that is not going anywhere. This is technology that is going to replace jobs because it will make them easier to do. We saw this happen with the internet. Maybe you were alive for that, maybe you weren't. I'm not going to comment. As technologies develop, usually what happens is that they make people more productive. Make one person able to do the job of 2. If your job can be done by something like this or by AI or large language models, then they will get done by that because it helps companies who do not care about you to maximize their production, which they do care about, right? At low cost. Employ fewer workers and make them work harder. That is the form of capitalism that we know and love, right? Okay, so then how does this impact me as in the job market? Being able to tell what's bullshit and not is a very valuable skill. How can you tell whether something is the right answer? That is one of the most important things that you'll learn in a class like this. How can you distinguish between what's right and what's wrong? And how can we build mental models to see before the outcome exists what we would have expected to see? So if, for example, I lost the line, obviously, but I have this thing and I have a mental model of how it should move. And so I have an expectation that when I drop it, it should fall, right? Good, and then I do it. Okay, that worked. We're going to internalize that and we're going to externalize it. We're going to talk about how that happens, how we build mental models and how we test them, including how do we check that we're wrong? Our instinct always tells us to check that we're right, but we need to be able to learn to find contradictory information, right? We create a hypothesis or we create an idea about how the world works. Can we test to see if we made the wrong choice? And that is not a human thing to do, but it is the thing that we'll try to get good at. Is that fair? Okay. Does this seem fun? To have this account? Make one. It's fun, I promise. You can get it to do funny things like, I mean, you could use it for like nonsense too. It's fun. You can have it like create a recipe for brownies, and then you can do it in like Shakespeare. Like tell me to like create a recipe for brownies using and it's fast too. So let's try it. Give me a recipe for cookies, but write it like you were writing a sonnet. Now, was that going to taste good? I don't know. Probably not. Recently, someone identified, so there's different models, obviously, and some of them use different training data. And someone recently asked for a pizza recipe. How do you make the cheese gooier? And one of these models suggested that you use glue. Because they were scraping from a Reddit page that used that for like photography. How do you make your cheese look gooier? And this was a response. They just scraped that part of the internet without understanding what it meant. Okay, so we're going to pay close attention to that. And even though we get an output that seems reasonable, we're not just going to copy it down because it's going to be obvious to me It's not going to be obvious to you. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay. That was good. That was like an hour without actually talking about anything that I meant to. Okay. Let's do class. All right. Where's the All right. So we're going to identify the nature of science, of nature. We're going to talk about identifying scientific and non-scientific statements. We'll talk really briefly about the scientific method. We'll talk about the fact that it's not the way that it's written in the book. It's not formulaic. It's an evolving thing. And then we'll talk about a funny way to use it. All right. Fact versus opinion. Okay, you're going to tell me fact or opinion. Ready? Raise your hand for fact. Raise your hand for opinion. Oh, okay. All right. All right. Next. Cats are smaller than horses. Raise your hand for fact. Okay. Raise your hand for opinion. 17 is not an even number. Fact? Opinion? Oh, okay, all right, now we just got all right. All right. Things fall when you drop them. Fact? Opinion? All right, all right, all right. Now I see what's going on here. Sky is beautiful. Fact? No. You like it? No, not fact. Opinion? Okay, everyone opinion. All right. Cats are better than horses. Fact? Opinion? Good. 17 is a lucky number. Fact? Yeah, all right. Opinion? Okay. Things fall faster when you hope they do. Like a watch, what was that watch kettle doesn't boil faster? I'm not good with idioms, but I'm really annoying about analogies. Okay. So let's look at what we thought were the facts. Which one do you think the facts? Top one, right? Everyone says the top one. These are easily identified. Why? Well, you know, they're based on everyday experience, hopefully a shared experience. That we go outside, not always true. Sometimes the sky not blue. What's an example of the sky not being blue? Night. Yeah, definitely not blue at night. Cloudy. Anything else? Best time of day? Sunset, right? Beautiful, red and orange. Okay, so not always true, but mostly true. If you said the sky is blue, like no one get mad, right? Okay, cats are smaller than horses. That's like a shared experience that most of us have. You might add qualifiers. You might say like real live horses and real live cats, right? Because like if you went into, say, a store and you got a plastic one, they might be the same size, right? So you might need to add qualifiers to each of these statements, right? Like the sky is blue during the day when it's not cloudy, right? That would be a perfect way to make it a fact, right? Just like I forget yesterday, Tuesday, we had someone who took something that was a non-scientific question and make it a scientific question by adding qualifiers, right? 17 is not an even number. This is the easiest one. That's the definition of even versus odd. And this thing is sometimes not true though, right? What? In space too? But let's say you're like you go to Disneyland and or the California Adventure. You like drop in that elevator and you're screaming and like all your stuff's like in front of you. Right? So things fall when you drop them, but maybe not. Right? Okay. These ones, the opinions are easier to identify. Right? Perhaps. So the sky is beautiful. I don't know. Might not like so. These are, you know, readily identified. These ones are harder to identify. These up next two. right? 17 is a lucky number. Because we have to define concept size luck. We have to define, like, how do you know how fast things fall? Right? We have to think about that in the context of how we make measurements. And we don't necessarily all know how to make measurements yet. And I don't think we'll do any experimentation in this class. So this may not be part of our like shared experience. It certainly might not be part of our everyday experience, right? So we might disagree that these could be opinions. Is that fair? Okay. So we're going to use, this is the idealized method of scientific inquiry that you see in your book. It's not how that, but we're going to talk about it because you have to. And then we're going to talk about how we frame our understanding of the world. So based on proposing and testing a hypothesis, so you make some observation, you ask a question, you suggest a hypothesis by which you might be able to make a prediction. Then you perform a test of that hypothesis, and you either support that hypothesis and allow you to make more predictions, or you are wrong, and you have to create a new hypothesis. Okay? Here, the things that I really want to point out is that observations are key. If you can't test it, then it's not really scientific. Right? So there are some great questions that we had in the discourse on Tuesday, and there are some things that are just inherently non-scientific, right? So you can have personal experiences that are very real to you, that you may never be able to recreate, and therefore don't exist through a scientific lens. There's nothing wrong with that, right? How we understand spirituality, how we understand religion is a deeply personal experience. And it does not fall into this frame. This is how we understand things like how to create technology. You need science to create things like this. You want to keep in mind that this is rocks. These are rocks that we make think. Okay, that's fucking crazy. That's science at work. Okay, why that science works? That could be philosophy or spirituality or religion, right? And just because we participate in the scientific process doesn't mean that's our identity. These are not identity politics either, right? If I do one of these things, it doesn't make me better than other people who do them differently. There are different ways to know things. We saw that at the very beginning when we saw art, right? Art is complementary in many ways to STEM, right? We talked about that in the context of STEAM, where if you think about design, not all design is simply functional. Some of it is about beauty. And that's important when you think of it in terms of how to design things based on the natural world, right? When you think about the most stable configurations for a bridge using triangles, because triangles are naturally stable, right? There's intersections between art and this process. Okay, so in practice, this is really what it looks like more. Okay. So finds the question, can I throw one of these rocks into the pool? Hey, guys, come watch me throw this rock in the pool. And then you form a hypothesis. He's like, I'm going to throw this so far, you won't even believe that. Throws it and says, whoa, that was sick, right? And he's like, I'm the best. And this guy's watching it happen, right? Right? This is like more likely how science happens. There's competition between scientists. They are people, human beings, who want to check one another's work and determine whether or not it was right or wrong. Best thing you can do in science is prove someone else wrong, right? That doesn't mean that it's all wrong. That means if you get away with doing it, that's awesome, right? Okay, here's another example. Oh shit, this isn't working, right? Just notice it's not working. Damn. Okay. Well, what could be happening here? Oh, maybe, you know what? Hold on. Let's just check really. I want to, maybe the battery's dead, right? Let's check the battery. Oh, I'll replace the battery. Pretend I just did. Okay, now it works. Okay, that's a natural way of thinking about the world, right? You form a hypothesis in your mind. You create something that's testable. Right? If I replace the battery and it works, then I think it was the battery. Good, that's it. That's the scientific process, right? At least in its smaller see. Okay, mm, there are types of problems where figuring out what you need to know is half the battle. So we're gonna do one of these and then we'll probably run out of time. So we need to be able to guesstimate certain things in our lives. Okay. So for example, you may not be able to guess exactly the values, but you can get kind of close. So everyone started the clickers? All right. Let's figure out how many iPhones there are in this room. Okay. So let's start a poll really quickly. Oh my gosh. All right. So are there more than 24? Are there between 24 and 18, 17 and 11, 10 and 6, or 5 and 3? Yeah. 56 answers. Well, don't discuss it yet. Don't discuss it yet. There's obviously one. Anyone else want to dial in really quick? Get your answer in there. No, interesting. 63 answers. Last person, 64. Okay. So how would I figure that out?
Yeah.
I ask. Yeah, that's one way to do it. I can also infer. I could make guesses, but I would need to base those on some of my understanding. So let's say I imagine there are 80 people enrolled in this class. I'm not going to count you all today, but there's like 63 respondents. So I'll say there's 65 people in this class, or 67, right? I need to know how many people are in here, right? What else would I need to know? What's that?
Are you asking how you would word this question or this?
No, so like what other things might I have to consider here? Who doesn't have a phone, right? What percentage of people just don't have their phone today, right? Or maybe they left it at home or they broke. So we can't always assume that it's 100. Yeah. Sure. How many brands of phones? So most people have cell phones, but maybe it's only like 90. I don't know. Maybe that's crazy.
What do you think affected, like, say, like, in your deliberation would like prefer, you know,
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And if this was in a different room, we would have to consider that. But y'all are pretty close. I'm old, you're young. So I'm gonna put you all in the same group. Yeah.
Can afford an iPhone?
Who can afford an iPhone, right? You might think to yourself, well, iPhones are kind of a waste of money, like who wants that $800 every year or something, right? Okay. And you might want to think about how many phones are iPhones, right? So you said different brands. So now there's a lot of competitors in the market, Samsung, Huawei, these types of phones, right? So this might not have been true 20 years ago. Maybe most of the phones were Razor or something else, right? BlackBerry, yeah. Motorola. Okay, and then we multiply them together. Number of people times the percentage that have cell phones. Let's say that's 90 times the number that are iPhone. Let's say it's 30. And that gives you the number of iPhones present. Someone want to do that? I'll do it on my phone. On my iPhone. All right, let's do it really quickly. We're gonna do here, what do we say, 65 people? And we said maybe 90% of people have their phone. We like 90 or 95? 95, okay, we'll do 0.95. So we're gonna times it by 0.95. Okay, that's 61 phones. Okay, and then what fraction? Maybe 30%? Okay, now we're gonna times that by 0.3. Okay, so there should be like 18 and a half phones that are iPhones in here. Okay, let's find out. Okay, hold on. Do you have an iPhone? Oh shit, you okay, well you got to. Oh damn, it's not looking good. Okay, so we already have 65 answers, so somehow it went up. How many iPhones do you think are in this room? Was it 18? More? Raise your hand for more. Yeah, it was way more. It's 57. Okay, so what did I do wrong? Yeah. Right. So the fraction that I used was incorrect. And in fact, we'll use this when we think about, for example, what's the likelihood that there is life in the universe? We'll use these multiplications to figure out how many possible life things there are out in the universe. We'll use this in the context to understand how one specific part of a theory or one specific part, an assumption, can be wrong and then lead you to the wrong answer, right? So for example, right now, would everyone agree that we are standing on the earth? Yes.
So we're sitting.
Okay, well, okay, sorry, I'm standing. Are we moving?
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm moving. Do you feel like you're moving? No, I don't feel like I'm spinning. I don't feel like I'm moving. So that seems like in direct contrast to my shared experience. And this will take like, I guess, 2,000 or 3,000 years of astronomy to untangle. Okay, and we'll do it at the beginning of class. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns? Cool.